Hello, 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 hello. I hope you're alive. I hope you are doing well. So, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing well. Let me check and see if the live stream is actually working well. I think I want to check and see if everything is working perfectly. So, I'm going to close some of the stuff I have here, and then I'm going to open up a new tab to just check if things are running just the way they are supposed to be running. Okay, it seems like we're live. Okay, can you please do me a little favor if you're watching this? Kindly go inside the live and leave a hi, maybe ask a question. I think that will be a good thing. So I guess we can start. So yeah, uh, everything is working successfully. So I guess we should start. First of all, thank you guys for 9,000 subscribers. I have, uh, honestly speaking, getting to the point where I feel so much pressure and so much, should I call it anxiety for being a content creator here on YouTube, because it kind of brings a certain expectation out of you when people see you on YouTube teaching and explaining all these concepts. To them, you seem to be a person who knows it all, and yet you don't actually know it all. You get to research, sit down, script videos, and then you code your way out of hours and hours of content and you make it public. So most of the times when people see content creators like me, they think that we are good programmers or we know our stuff. But the truth is, we all have imposter syndrome and we get to experience that feeling of feeling like you are not doing enough, even in real life. So I get stuck on the projects I'm working on, and then I get stuck on some of the things that are going on in my life. And yeah, I'm not such a perfect person. The reason that's why I created this live stream is to, first of all, thank you. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. 9,000 subscribers is such a big milestone for me. And I honestly want to thank you for all the good that you've done to me, those who have liked, those who have shared my videos, those who have spent some of their hard-earned money on me by sending it to me through donations. I would like to say that I'm really thankful. I want to thank you so much for the kind comments, for the shares, for any way you've interacted with my videos, even if it's a dislike, even if it's a like. I would like to say thank you. I really appreciate what you guys have done. You guys are the reasons as to why I'm here. Secondly, the channel also reached 1 million views, and to me, that was something that was amazing. I woke up in the morning and saw that my channel had 999,000 something views. And then I got to understand the fact that I started this channel from zero. In fact, the first five YouTube accounts that subscribed to my channel were my accounts, and I used to rush and tell my friends about my YouTube channel, and some of them discouraged me, and many of those who encouraged me are still congratulating me even up to now, and I am so grateful that they did encourage me to do what I was doing. Before we get to any milestone, we always have a point where we even ask ourselves whether we know what we are doing. And I'll be honest, starting a YouTube channel is something that is really hard, something that is rewarding. I mean, I've been able to get whatever I've got from being a content creator, to be honest. First of all, I've been able to impact thousands of people that I do not know I'll ever meet. And that is so special. And secondly, I've also been able to increase my programming skills. Every time I get to learn a topic and share it online with you guys, I get to improve my skills as a person. I get to better myself as a software engineer, as a software developer, and also a communicator. I am a person who is not so social. In fact, I am really comfortable with being alone, but through YouTube, I've learned to interact and communicate my ideas in the most effective way. So, thank you guys for being part of this journey. I know we may get to bigger subscriber and bigger view milestones than what we have achieved today, but one thing I would like to encourage you to do is to take a moment and look back at some of the things that you've passed through and where you are today. I mean, when I started this YouTube channel, I was at a point where I did not even have where to stay. Like, I was at university in my third year and things were pretty tough. And then I started this YouTube channel as a hobby, not with the goal of being monetized, not with the goal of even impacting 1,000 people, but through creating videos, I got to just do it, and then I realized that people are actually watching my videos, which encouraged me to create more videos. And I am really grateful because there are many times where I felt like giving up on this, but now I have reasons to go ahead and do it. And I'm really grateful. At least I have been able to live to the time where I'll see that I've been watched a million times and 9,000 people have been convinced to watch my content again and again and again. So thank you guys for that. Let me interact with some of your comments right here. So I've got, let me try to actually go out of the YouTube studio so that I can view your comments through the channel itself. I'm live streaming, and the funny thing is, I organized this live stream, and at the point I was organizing it, power went. So I'm running on my laptop battery and some solar backup that I have here at home. So I hope the stream does not stop. I just hope I get to live stream until this is all done. I wonder why ads have to play on my video when I'm live streaming. YouTube is unfair. I want to read some of your comments, and I want to also do some coding if you don't mind. I want to do some coding, maybe on some project I haven't yet done, or using a framework that I haven't yet done, or things like that. Let me try to skip this. So what I want is to view the comments. So I'm going to start with Damaris Scott, doing great. We see you and hear you. Thank you. Pramod DH, hi, when will you start Fast API microservice? I have been taking a little break of YouTube to focus on some of the projects that I've been doing, but rest assured, I'm going to make a Fast API microservice video. I will be honest, it's hard to get to balance in between creating content and doing work off YouTube, but rest assured I'll create the microservice playlist, and I may even break down the app we built in FastAPI Beyond CRUD into microservices. My approach to creating videos on YouTube is a simple one. I like to keep things simple, and some people have loved it and some people have criticized it, and I think to me, I honestly love simple things and I don't like to complicate things, and therefore I am not really certain about when I release the first API microservice project, but then I will make it. I will make it because even the first API Beyond CRUD project is a project that I built at the time where I was in between stopping to work at a certain job I was working and not getting another job. So perhaps I'll look for ways of finding time to squeeze and create the microservices playlist, but I'll create it, rest assured. Another question I've had is love you from India. Thank you so much, Lucifer. I've also got another comment. Your content is awesome. I'm a product manager. that wants to become an engineer, and I've learned so much. Wow, thank you so much. I'm really glad that you learned from my content. I honestly, with all humility, thank you. I don't think I'm the best teacher in the world. There are people who do a better job than me, but if people like you can say that you are really glad that my content helps you, or and my content is helping you become a better engineer, that means the world to me. Another comment is from Andrew. Hey, hi Andrew. Hi my guy. I hope you're doing well. Andrew is one of the students I went with at university. He's a computer scientist, and I remember he was a man of his data. He liked data science a lot. And then I've got another one from Joseph. Joseph Morales. Congrats from Venezuela. Great content. Thank you for watching. I am really grateful that you watch my content. Damaris Scott has another question. So Pramo has another question. Congrats. Thank you so much. Now I have Damaris Scott still having the question. I tried going through Fast API documentation, and it was hard to take that information and create an app just from those docs. Then I saw your lessons and learned so much. How do you prep for teaching? Now I'm going to be giving you kind of a list of steps I take to teach programming. It's not the most perfect, but it has worked, and I've been able to at least improve it. So let me try to open up my terminal right here. Let me try to open up my terminal, and inside my terminal is basically where I'm going to take some notes. So please do not feel afraid. I'm going to be taking some notes, and we shall basically walk through some of the questions that you guys will be asking, and I'll be taking some notes. So I'm going to open this up in VS Code, and then I will answer your questions while taking some of the notes. So I will create a new file, and I'm going to create this and call it, let's say, Q&A.md. Now you'll forgive the screen I'm coding on right now because I'm coding on my laptop, and its screen is not the best. Like, its screen is poor in resolution, but I think we'll get to work with that. So how do I create videos? I'm going to basically walk you through my process. So the first thing, of course, is to research. So I begin by researching a topic. So researching a topic, basically what I do when researching a topic is to start by visiting the docs. I love to read documentation, and sometimes I read books, and sometimes I consult friends like Jim. Jim, thanks for the super chat. Jim is a friend of mine I met from Twitter, and we've been talking, and he shares a lot of resources on programming, and he actually gave me a good resource on Docker, and rest assured that I'll be creating some Docker content using some of the knowledge I've learned from a resource that Jim shared. My process is quite simple. I start by researching a topic. I read from the documentation. Some documentations are honestly hard to learn from. I'll give you an example of the SQL Alchemy documentation. The SQL Alchemy documentation is the hardest documentation I've ever read in my life. But the way I got to get to understand it was through a book called SQL Alchemy Essentials, I think. Let me try to get it. SQL Alchemy Essentials. I think it's SQL. Let me just search for SQL Alchemy book. So yeah, the book is called Essential SQL Alchemy. I remember reading this book multiple times, and I read it at university, By then I hadn't even done anything professional. I was just reading for the sake of it. I had just done database management systems. Of course, we got introduced to things like relational databases and stuff like that. Then with the Python knowledge that I had gained from the structured programming course that I'd done, I decided to at least look for ways to interact with databases using Python. And then I came across SQL Alchemy. But when I went to the documentation, I was so frustrated by how hard it is. It's so overly technical. So I went and read this book. And when I read this book, it kind of made sense. And after reading this book, I went back to the documentation, and the documentation at least was smoother compared to when I did not have any knowledge about SQL Alchemy. So apart from so basically the first process is researching a topic. This involves things like reading documentation. This is things like browsing the internet. So we can read things like blogs, LinkedIn posts, basically a lot of things. LinkedIn posts, things like reading Medium articles, a lot of things that I do when researching a topic. Sometimes I even go to engineering blogs, and they're also a great source of information on any technology I may be interested in learning about. Then basically reading documentation, reading blog articles. Sometimes I watch videos, but I think this is the thing that I do the least. I don't know why, but for some reason I'm not good at watching people, most especially if they have this long technical content that they present. And finally, I create that long content that I don't, I'm not good at watching. So the second step after I've researched a topic, sometimes I take notes. Um, sometimes I take notes. So basically, the second step here is to basically organize my information in a way that is going to be beneficial to the audience that I'm going to give it to. So of late, I've been taking notes, and this is done in the format I'm doing. Things like writing Markdown. I've really got good at writing Markdown. In fact, let me try to do some self-promotion here. I wrote this entire website, Fast API Beyond CRUD. I wrote it in pure Markdown. I did not use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So I went ahead and just wrote this entire website using Markdown, and then I used a tool called MKDocs to pretty much generate a website for me. All I had to do was to write the Markdown for each chapter that I wanted to create a video about, and it went ahead and converted it into HTML. I even set up the stylings and all the JavaScript, and it works, and I was really happy. So taking notes is one thing that I have been doing. So after taking notes, the third thing is to record. And I'll be honest with you guys, recording is the hardest step in the content creation that I've been doing. First of all, you need to set yourself up. Now, you guys have noticed how I started this YouTube channel. If you go back to the videos that I started with, I was using the same laptop that I'm using right now to record videos, and by then I would do it with the webcam of this. So basically, it is a game of using what you have. I was using my laptop, recording videos, and I think one of the most popular videos on my YouTube channel was created in the same way, where I was actually talking about SQL Alchemy. So one of my most popular videos was created using the same laptop, and I was talking about SQL Alchemy. And by then, what I had to do was to be in a very quiet place so that people do not shout when I'm recording. So the third step is me recording, and this basically is where I sit down just like I'm doing right now, and then I get to record and talk what I've been researching. Then the fourth step in my editing process is editing. Now this is obvious. I edit on my laptop, I edit the video, and then I put it out there. So the fifth step, which is like the fifth step, is basically releasing the content or releasing the videos that I have been researching and editing, and basically organizing. So I just research a topic, reading documentation, anything, reading documentation, Stack Overflow, from any source of information that I may have. Then I take down notes. I prefer to write them in Markdown. I record, edit, release, and so on. So I hope I've answered your question, Mr. Damaris. So, Mr. Jim Ryan, thank you so much for that super chat. I really appreciate. Just like I said, Jim is a friend of mine, and I became a friend to Jim through Twitter. I remember back in 2020, I used to be so active on Twitter. By then, it was still Twitter. We chatted so much about programming, and we still do even up to now. He shares with me a lot of technical resources, and yeah, he's a good guy. Thank you so much uh, for that super chat. Now, I still have some questions here. The first one is Redis, Fast API, Apache Kafka, Postgres, load testing, and so on. Thank you for the suggestions. I'm going to note them down, and I'll basically create a video about them in the future. So I have to sit down, research some of the topics like Apache Kafka, because I've never used Apache Kafka. And then if I understand it, I'll sit down and make a video about it. So yeah. Then Andy, John, hello Jonathan, DSA, I'm doing some projects. Which one should you concentrate on more? Now, I think this is a topic that depends on where you come from. This is a question that you may ask and get different answers for depending on where you come from. I personally come from a country in Africa where not a lot of people are going to give you a job based on how good you are at solving data structures and algorithms questions. So for us, it has been more about how can you present yourself in front of interviewers, how many good projects have you built, and how how good have you networked really? Because most of the jobs that people get right now are because of the connections they have. It's becoming harder and harder to get a job just because you have a resume, most especially from the country that I come from. So data structures and algorithms, those are done by people who come from countries that request you to have a good knowledge of data structures and algorithms. But here in Uganda, people want you to have technical knowledge about the problems that you're going to be solving at the company. And I think having good projects is what you are going to present for you to be in position to go ahead and get a job. I think I've answered your question. Now, of course, I've got to some extent where I had to apply to jobs abroad, and that has actually challenged me to learn some technologies and data structures and algorithms and things like that. But from where I come from, it's more about how good you are at problem solving, but all that can be shown via the projects that you've worked on. Now, another question I've got, how are the software engineering opportunities in your country, and what are you working on beyond YouTube? All right, so to start, I'll say that I've honestly not been employed ever since I left the startup I was working for. But when I'm not doing YouTube, these are some of the ways that I'm working. So I get to basically work on some client projects. Those can be freelance or contract projects. So I get to secure some of them from friends of mine. I have friends who have friends who have friends who have clients, and those clients bring to me work, and then I get to work on that. So basically, that's how I get to make a living when I'm not fully employed and when I am not doing YouTube. So I also apart from the client projects, I sometimes get to teach and tutor people. However, that's something that I haven't done ever since last year. I think last year was the last time that I professionally did tutoring, and I was in my last year of university. So that's also somewhere that I get to work when I'm not doing YouTube. So I'm a software engineer. Of course, I have to get jobs and work and be able to afford my life. You know, software engineering life is hard. And then after that, I also have to do this YouTube, which is also a great way for me to share my knowledge and some money. Um, Now, I thank Damaris Scott. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for spending some of your hard-earned money. I know software engineering money is not easy money. Ziwa Simon, thank you so much, brother. Ziwa Simon is a friend of mine who I grew up with, and I'm really glad he's watching this video. Damaris Scott, she lol, thank you. Ziwa Simba Steven, thanks, bruh, for your precious time. Oh man, thank you so much. So I guess I have to get into some coding because I guess I have to do some coding on live because at least I think that's a better way to engage with all of you guys. So there's this framework that I wanted to learn, but I've always lacked time, or I've got busy, or sometimes I've got lazy and not learned it. And that is Lightstar. Lightstar is one way to build APIs, and it's basically grouped in the first APIs because it also provides you with that async ASCII way of programming web servers, and I always wanted to go ahead and learn it. So maybe I can create a simple app while I interact with you guys, and then we can see what to do beyond that. So I'm going to begin by going to the Lightstar documentation. So please feel free to ask questions. I have basically presented my process of creating content or of teaching. Let me just actually call it teaching. And then I've also answered the question of, so I'm just going to group this into a markdown file and maybe I'll make it available so for you guys to access. So the question that Damaris asked, I think, let me try to check. I want to be certain. So Lucifer suggested content on Redis, Fast API, Apache Kafka. So that's basically a request. And then a question here was software engineering opportunities in my country. That one I answered. And then Simba Steven. So currently learning Python. Ibrahim Muhammad. Yeah, please do learn Python. I think it's a good programming language, and there are a lot of opportunities that you are going to get because you know how to program in Python. Like you can join AI, you can become a machine learning engineer, you can become a data scientist. You can even be like me, a web developer who is building backend systems using Python. So I'm going to be building a simple web server, maybe an API, and then we can at least get to understand how this framework works because yeah, we need to at least brush up on our skills. So Lightstar is a framework that boasts of helping you build web APIs, and it basically does this the same way like Fast API does its things, but it has a different way, of course, of doing things. So the thing is, you create a route just like you do this, but then you have to import the HTTP method. And then after importing the HTTP method, you define its handler. And after defining its handler, then you create a Lightstar instance, and that will have a list of whatever handlers. So I guess we can get into it. We code a simple web server, and then I think that will be good. So what I'm going to do is to go ahead and open up my VS Code right here. So I'm going to keep track of some of the questions that I have here, and then I'll also have the code running here. So I'm going to create a new directory. I don't know if I should do it in the same directory, or let me actually do it in the same, in another VS Code instance or another VS Code window. So what I'm going to do is to open up a new folder, and in this folder, basically, let me create it in my documents. Let me call this light star life. Now you guys will forgive me, I am coding on my laptop, and my laptop has a shitty resolution, like compared to my monitor, and there's no power over here, so I'm doing all the live streaming on my laptop. Yeah, so basically I'm going to start by creating a virtual environment, activating it, and all that stuff. I've also been able to use a certain tool called UV. I don't know if you guys have checked it out, but it's this Python package manager that does wonders. It's amazing. It's so fast. In fact, I think I can use it. So what I can do right here is to begin a project with, I think I should make my screen a little bit bigger so that you guys can see. So to create a UV project, you have to have UV installed, and you can install it via pip. Now there's a problem right here. we can't use this oh my bash thing with big letters, but I'll try to use it. So you can run pip install UV, and it will install UV, and then UV will be your Python package manager. So why use UV? I've been using UV because UV is first of all faster than pip env, it's faster than poetry, it's faster than even pip, because it's based on Rust, and it kind of does the Python package management really well, and speed is what sells it. I mean, the guys who created UV are the same guys who created RAF, another tool that I use, and RAF is a formatter and a linter for Python code, and you can actually check out both of those tools. I think I can get to their websites and leave you the links. Now, since I'm starting to code, what I'm going to do is to check comments and answer questions every after 10 minutes. So it's currently 21:34, and at 21:44 I will get to answering your questions. So I was talking about RAF. The RAF website is going to be found at RAF. Let me just actually type RAF Python, and then this is going to be the RAF Astro. So Astro is the company behind RAF and UV. It's called Astro. So you can check out RAF. I really love this tool, and also UV. So they're the same guys. I think they even took on the project of the creator of Flask Cry, which is, yeah, they took it over. So they basically build these Python toolings with Rust. So they have RAF, they created UV, Rai. This was a project that was started by the creator of Flask. So yeah, nice stuff. So I just wanted to show you that, but we go back here. We want to code a simple web server using, so my internet is slow, and I think this is because the internet here is crap, and I think power also has a role to play in that. But while we wait, I think I can use that as an opportunity to answer some of your questions. So REST framework, I learned REST frameworks thanks to you, and it's very helpful. Well, Chetan, I am really glad you learned from my videos. I do not take that for granted. It's the best feeling in the world when you get to do what you do for reasons that are just reasons. Because honestly speaking, outside most of the benefits of doing YouTube, uh, there is that thing of just doing YouTube for the sake of doing YouTube. And I think that's what I've been doing, because for you to do YouTube for the sake of doing YouTube, of course, you won't care so much about how not of a professional you are. Am I saying that right? I think when you do YouTube for the sake of doing YouTube, you save yourself from having to feel like what you're doing is not good. I mean, when I create a video, I've created a video, and if I've done mistakes, of course, I get positive feedback from the people I've made the video for, who will tell me that, you know what, Jonathan, you're wrong about this. And I've honestly learned so much programming from YouTube, because there are a lot of people who are going to look at what you're doing and tell you that what you're doing is not right, or what you've done is wrong, or the kind of implementation you've done here is not how you would have done it. There is a better way to do it. And that's some benefit of being a YouTuber. Anyway, hoping that rough has UV has been installed, we can just say UV init, and that will start a UV project in our environment. So basically, we have not a valid package or extra name, lifestyle life, and names must start and end with a letter, a digit, or contain blah blah blah. So what I can do is to just rename this. I'll just move back, and after moving back, I'll try to rename this. So I'll rename this from Lightstar. I guess I've done it badly. So the project is called, let me try to see, Lightstar Live, and then I'll try to move Livestar. This is weird. I guess I'll have to just create, I'll just call this the 9000 sub live. And then I'll cd into that. And after cding into that, of course, that's where I'm going to open up a VS Code. So we're going to code a simple web server using Lightstar, and I hope you guys will be comfortable with the entire live stream and everything, because this is something I'm doing that is very unscripted. So I've installed UV, and I've not done it in my virtual environment, so it's present inside the entire Python installation that I have on my machine. So what I'm going to be doing is to use UV, so I can say UV init, and that will go ahead and initialize a UV project inside this directory. So when you have a UV project, it's going to basically have a readme.md, basically giving us a simple description about the project that we are working on. A pyproject.toml or toml, whatever guys call it. So this is basically file, and this file is going to contain metadata about your application. So things like the name of the application, the version of the application, the description of the application, readme.md, where it is. So it's the one that we have in here. We also have the requirements for that project. So all dependencies that we're going to be installing are going to be found in the list of dependencies. Then you can also have build instructions all configured inside here, and the rest. But I'm going to show you what made me fall in love with UV. So inside here we have a source folder, and this source folder is basically going to contain our project. So all of our code is going to reside inside this folder right here. Now what I'm going to do is to get rid of the 9000 sublive folder, and what we shall have is our beta source folder with a dunder init.py file. So 4 minutes remaining to answering some of your questions, and we can go ahead. So what I'm going to do is to basically move on and open up a new terminal, and to add a package or a library using UV, all you have to do is to just say UV add, and then the package you want to add. So I want to check the installation instructions for Lightstar so that I can be sure about what to run. You forgive me, guys, my internet is slow. I don't know if you can even catch me. I don't know if you can even hear me. My internet is so slow. Okay, so Mr. Mr. Vesta here, Asi Marie. Thank you for watching. Glad to be here. Question for later: is there a good framework for authentication you'd recommend to use besides the more basic methods using JWT that are presented in most videos? Of course, like there are very many. In fact, I'm working on releasing some other methods that are used for implementing security in applications. I've been reading about OAuth, basically you being able to use methods of authentication that allow you to authenticate users without them providing passwords. I've also been reading about OpenID Connect. So those are things that I'm planning on making videos on in the future. So please pray that I stay alive to the point where I get time and record these videos. Another thing is more or not more. Thank you for the correction. So congratulations on 9K. Thank you so much, Vesta, Jim Ryan. We can hear. Oh, thank you. So I guess I have to continue then. So I'll go back here and say UV add. So what I wanted to do is to, since this is a very unscripted video, I'll check the documentation. So I don't know if that's okay with you. So Lightstyle is a powerful, flexible, highly performant, and opinionated framework. So by being opinionated, they are basically telling us that this framework requires us to build with it using its ways of building. So I think it forces us into a kind of way of building web applications, which is very similar to what Django does. I mean, you're not so free to do what you want in Django. You have to follow what Django wants you to do. And I think this is what also Lightstar enables you to do. So Lightstar supports plugins. It ships with dependency injection, security primitives, open API schema generation, message pack, middlewares, and a great CLI experience, and much more. So let's go ahead and look at how we can set up Lightstar. So to set up Lightstar, what we have to do is to just go right in here and pip install Lightstar. So since I'm using UV, I can just say UV add, and then I say Lightstar. And that will collect Lightstar and all its dependencies and add it inside our project. So what we see here is our virtual environment, and this is the .vim folder. So the speed at which these packages are going to be installed is faster compared to pip env and pip, and that is one of the things that sold this tool to me. Like, it has a very nice way of installing these dependencies. I think I have an error, so let me just try to see. I have an error here, and I have to understand why this happened. So let me try to see. Failed to fetch wheel, that build backend failed to build wheel, build editable. What? Now these are the things I don't like. But if all fails, then I guess I'll have to move to what I had to do. So as an example, if you intend to ship a directory named foo that resides within a source directory located at the root of your directory, you can define the following. So basically what I have to do is to go ahead and change in my project, pyproject.yaml. So name is this, and I guess it's looking for where the project is. I don't know, but I think Lightstar is installed. Then we have the uv.log file, which is basically to keep track of the dependencies that we've so far installed. I think this happened because of the change that I made of changing to the source directory, but I don't think that will actually stop us from coding what we want to code in this simple project. So what I'm going to do is to basically start reading the documentation. So after installing Lightstar, I think we can try to see if Lightstar is installed. So rather than using UV, I think I will just go ahead and use the virtual environment. So I have it in my vim bin and activate, which is done. So what I can do is to run lightstar because it comes with a CLI, and lightstar command is not found, so the installation wasn't even successful. Wow. But all that is stuff that I'll learn how to do. Anyway, so what I'll do is to go ahead and try to install lightstar using the command that they've given us on the documentation. So I guess you can now understand that most of us guys who make videos on YouTube are not that good at what we do. We have to script everything and make you feel like everything we are making videos about is something we know at the top of our brains. Of course, there are good engineers that know what they do, but majority of us people who create videos on YouTube are really good at what we do, not because we are really good at what we do, but we try to make our audiences feel like we are good at what we do. So what I'm going to do is to use the virtual environment that I've created, and then we shall start using that virtual environment. So Lightstar has been installed, and the next thing we're going to do is to check if the Lightstar CLI is accessible. So to do that, we can just run Lightstar, and still the Lightstar command is not found. So I may be using the wrong version of Python, so can do with Python 3. And now I'm still using the same Python 3, which is in my virtual environment. So I don't know if the pip that I used is the real pip. So I ran which pip, and then I was running the wrong pip, or if I actually did which pip, I was still using the wrong pip. So I have to make sure I use the pip of my virtual environment. So I'm going to try to open up my terminal again in my virtual environment, and then when I say which pip, that's going to still use the same pip. I don't know if this pip that's present within my virtual environment is actually a real pip. I may not be having pip, so just like you see, I don't have pip installed. So let me ditch UV for now. I think I'll just make a video about it. So what I'm going to do is to go ahead and use normal venv. So to do that, I can say python 3-m venv and then env. And then once I've been able to do that, the virtual environment will be created. We shall activate it and then install Lightstar. So that's a little bit of a setback, but do not mind. So I'm going to go back here. So where is the requirements.txt? Is there one? Yeah, I don't have one right now because I haven't yet echoed the requirements there. So I don't have that. So the virtual environment has been created. Let me activate it with source env bin and activate. And once that is done, I'm now going to go ahead and install UV. Actually, install Lightstar. So I'm going to say which pip. Of course, that's going to point to the environment for the one in our virtual environment. And then when I also try to access the Python 3, in this case, I'll get the Python 3 in our virtual environment. So I'll try to run pip install Lightstar, just like the documentation says. And that is going to go ahead and fetch Lightstar. But then you're going to notice how slow this is going to be. But I think since I've tried to install it, it's going to be a little bit faster since it has that caching thing. So that is exactly what I would like to build, passwordless auth. Thanks. Yeah, so I'm going to actually try as hard as I can to make a video about OAuth or OpenID Connect, and yeah, I'll try as fast as I can to see that that video is put out, because I've got a lot of people asking me the same question when I'm creating a video about this. The topics that my viewers have asked so much that I've been forced to get into learning them are Docker, microservices, and authentication. People want videos on those topics, and I hope to get to the point where I'll be able to create those videos. All right, so Lightstar has been installed. So once it's installed, I guess we can now have the Lightstar command. And when we run this command, of course, we have this nice command line, and it's basically telling us this is a Lightstar CLI. We can check the app there. We can have info routes. So the info is going to show us the information about the Lightstar app. The routes are going to be all the endpoints or all the URLs that are going to be specific to our application. Then run is going to run our Lightstar app. Schema is going to show us the Open API schemas. So I think those are going to be like what we can have as pedantic models, or what we can have as serializers in Django REST frameworks. Then sessions, those are server-side sessions, and then the version, which is the currently installed version of Lightstar. So let's freeze our requirements to the requirements.txt file. So you forgive me guys, this video is completely unscripted, but that doesn't also give me an excuse to go ahead and make mistakes. So we have this. Now I guess since I'm not using UV, I guess I'll have to get rid of some of the things that are specific to UV. Oh, I've actually also deleted my requirements for TXT, but let me undo that and then get rid of this too. So yeah, I have a bare project and it has a source folder. So inside here is where we're going to run our application. So let's go back to the documentation. After installing Lightstar, we now need to go ahead and basically create a Lightstar app. And from the example we have here, the first thing we have to do is to import Lightstar and any HTTP method we want to use. So I can go right here and say from. So this is not the virtual environment I'm using, so I have to point to the virtual environment I'm actually using, which is this. So I'm going to come right here, and all I have to say is from Lightstar. I'm going to go ahead and import Lightstar, which is our Lightstar class. And then for the first thing we're going to import is going to be the get method, but then I think all the methods are going to be accessed like that. So if we import post, we can also import patch, and then we can import put and delete and the rest. So all HTTP methods are going to be just imported as functions from this package. So what I can do is to go ahead and create a Lightstar instance that is created via app, and this app is going to be Lightstar. So after creating our Lightstar instance, then all we have to do is to provide the routes list. So once we've added the routes list, now we need to go ahead and define our routes. So your route is just defined by basically creating an instance. So I actually thought these are like functions, but then it seemed like they are classes. So get is a class, and it has everything to do with what a specific URL may have, or what a specific API endpoint is going to have. So for our case, we have this, and basically it helps us to create a decorator, and this decorator is going to have whatever is going to be specific to a specific API endpoint. Now in here is where we can go ahead and provide a path. So that's going to be our route path. And then we need to go ahead and define a handler. Now we can define this using async. So this is going to be kind of a coroutine. And then we can give this a name. So this is going to handle whatever shall happen when we access this endpoint. So if we say hello world, of course, this should return hello world. But I think there is a need for us to use type hints from the go. I think Lightstar is pretty stubborn and requires us to use type hints. Let's see if that's the case. So what I'm going to do is to define that this function is going to go ahead and return a string. So I'll just come and say return string, and here we shall just return hello world. And once that is done, to run our application, of course, that will just be using our Lightstar CLI. So if I say Lightstar run, I think I have to point to the app, So let me try to actually find out. I say let's start run help. That is going to show us what we need here. And then we have reload, reload that. So shows us the port, the host, debug, help. I don't know if we're supposed to point to a certain module. So run a Lightstar app. It requires UVCon. So I don't know if we have UVCon installed. Let me try to see if we can run UVCon. So UVCon is not installed. I think what we needed to do is to say pip install Lightstar. Just like from the documentation, we needed to run Lightstar standard, and that would at least go ahead and help us to run the installation of Lightstar plus all of the things that it depends on. So let me try to read some of your questions. Okay, so what is the requirements for txt file? Is there one? I think that's the last question I have. So while that is happening, I think I can also concentrate this side. So basically, it is the same thing like how you would construct a Fast API app or a Flask app. You create an app instance, that's the main entry point to your application. Then you define a bunch of routes, those routes having a URL and then a handler for what happens with that path. I don't know why I call it URL, but yeah, that's a path or a route, and then you define a route handler for that. So you define that this is a function and it returns a string, and then you define what it's going to return. So we can pretty much do the same thing when we define, let's say, want to return a special message or a dictionary of sort. So in this case, I'm going to just come right here and say slash, and for our case, what I can do is to go ahead and say async def, and this is going to maybe greet, and here I don't know if this does the same thing, because we may greet a name and then return maybe a dictionary. So let me use typing. So I can say from typing we are going to go ahead and import dict, and once we've imported dict, then you can go ahead and say that this is going to return a dictionary, and this dictionary is going to have keys of strings and values of strings. And once we are done with that, then we can simply return a message of greeting the person who has provided that. But then I think we also need to define this as a path parameter. So I don't know if this works the same way as Fast API, but then we shall see. So if I go back here, we are supposed to take in a path parameter just like this one, and then pass it in the handler, and then I think I've done it the right way, so let me try to do that. So if I come right here, I can actually change the name of this to greet, and then I pass in a name as a path parameter. So this is going to be name, and once that is done, then all I need to do is to add these two handlers or routes to our Lightstar instance. So the way we do that is by getting the names of the route handlers we've defined and then adding them to our Lightstar routes list. So to do that, I'm just going to come right here and I'll just say hello world. And once I've been able to do that, I'll then come and also provide the greet function. So once that is done, we have a simple web server. To run that web server, I think we need to first of all go ahead and specify the app. I don't know if that's what we are supposed to do, but then we can pass this as a module. Let's try to see. So if we run Lightstar, run, let's see if there's anything they have to say about the running so that we don't run into errors. I'm not trusting myself this time. So Lightstar run will run our app, but then I think it will have to first have a look at where our app is. So let's point it to the source directory. So I'll say Lightstar run, and then I'll point to the app, and then this is going to be, I'm not so sure if this is the way to do it, Or what I can do is to say lights around the way UVCon does it, and then I point to source and then app, and then got an extra argument app and an expected argument source app. So now this is where the trouble starts. Oh, you can directly run UVCon. Okay. So if I run UVCon, I can just say UVCon. So this is also we don't actually have UVCon run, but what we have is UVCon, and then we point to where we want to run. So I think this runs the same way FastAPI. You can use UVCon to run in FastAPI application, but this works the same way for all ASGI-based frameworks. And FastAPI actually has a CLI that we can use. So what I can do is to come and say FastAPI source app, and then I provide reload so that the server reloads. So this is going to start our app, but then we see lighter.exceptions.http exceptions 500. So path parameters should be declared with a string with a type using the following pattern. So we need to provide parameter and then type. So this is so strict about type hints. So I can go in here, provide the parameter, and then provide its type. So by default, this framework needs you to specify the type of anything you're going to be passing into the path parameter. So once that is done, I guess we have successfully created our web server, run it, and also created our simple endpoints. So what I'm going to do is to open up an API client. I have my simple RESTFox. It is just a minimal tool for making those API requests. It's something that I found on GitHub and decided to have a look at. Are there any other questions? I don't think I have any other questions, so I guess I'll have to just keep coding. All right, my light star is open. So these are some of the endpoints I developed in the first API Beyond CRUD series. And yeah, so I guess I have to create a new collection. How do I create a new collection? I have to go right here and say add workspace. So I'm just going to call this the 9000 sub live. And then I'll choose a folder. Okay, I'll just keep it in documents. And then that's where I'm going to create the workspace. So inside this collection is where I'm going to go. So given folder is not empty and does not have okay, so I've connected to power, and now okay, I think I have to point to a folder that doesn't have add workspace. This is going to be, let's call it lightstar, and then I'll choose a folder, and then I'll go to documents, create a new folder. I'll call this this thing is going to be called RESTFox, and then I'll select, and then I create. Hopefully this will work. So if I open it, we can now create requests. I've not used Postman, but I have Postman. And the reason as to why I cannot show you Postman is because I'm running some important stuff there. Anyway, it's not that important. So I'll create a new request. So this is going to be a hello request. After creating a hello request, I'm going to go ahead and provide the URL. So I can even rename this and basically go ahead and delete it. Can create, it's basically a simple minimalistic tool. So I can come in here and say hello, and then we can make a request to our endpoints we've created. So this is running on localhost 8000 and then slash on the root endpoint. We send request failed. I know, is our URL running on, is our app running on a different port? So I think it's running on the same thing. So hello world. So it's running on localhost 8000, but then I wonder why it's failing here. Is it because I need to provide, if I send this, it's not saying localhost, but then when I provide 127.0.0.1 port 8000, so I'll have to return hello world. So I guess I have written my URL wrongly. You forgive me for that. So we've successfully made our first API request with Lightstar. Now I have another API endpoint, which is basically one to greet. If I go ahead and say create, so this is going to be greet user. Can go ahead and create that, and after creating this, then we can make a request to 127.0.0.1 port 8000. So I even written it badly. I'm supposed to provide the slashes, and then I can also go ahead and say port 8000. So here port 8000, and then I can provide the name Jonathan. So if I go ahead and run a 404 not found, I think this is great, and then slash name. Now this is the mistake that I've done. So if I send, of course, it's going to return hello Jonathan, just like you can see right here. So let's go ahead and test more stuff. So I don't have any other questions here, which is fine. So if I go back here, we see that this is a minimum example. So after running our application, we can now make some requests, and then we are told where the automatically generated documentation is going to be. So when you go to slash schema for Redux, slash schema Swagger for Swagger, elements for elements, and then Rapidoc. So it seems like this framework provides 4 ways for us to be able to view our documentation. So I'm going to try out each of those. If I go to localhost 8000, and then I go to localhost 8000 slash schema. So this is going to return the Lightstar documentation, which is basically Redux. So this is Redux. And then you can also see the slash schema slash. So let me actually close this WhatsApp. So when you have slash schema slash Swagger, we can now have our Swagger UI. So I think I'm going to be making all my API requests here instead of dealing with this. So I'm going to close it and then close my terminal. And then I guess I have everything I need to get working. So we've created successfully our first 2 API endpoints, and we've also looked at the different ways Lightstar helps us to read doc. So it actually also has elements. So if I go to elements, it's going to take us to the documentation using elements. So there are very many ways of documenting API. So this is one that I've never used, elements, and it looks nice. Yeah, we can document the request, we can document the responses, we can see the body, and you can also see different ways to send requests to this API. You can see different programming languages. So if I wanted to make a request to the API using Ruby, this is the kind of documentation, or this is the kind of code I would write if I want to make a request using Ruby, which is interesting. So what I'm actually interested in is the Swagger UI. So that's what I'll go back to. And then, yeah, we are now Swagger UI. So we can now go back here and try to go through the documentation. So expanded examples. So the first thing here is saying we have to define our model using Pydantic or any other library based on it, just like Olma. So it works with Olma, it works with SQL model, it also works with Bini. Okay, so basically, if we want to use like an ORM, we can still use SQL model. Okay, so let's try making a post request. So I'll have to first send, or first actually import a post request, and then what I need is the data that I want, or to define the data that I want to send via the post request. So what I'll do is to create a class, and this class is going to be, let's just say, a message, or what can we actually do CRUD on for our simple web server. So let me post that as a question. How familiar are you with JavaScript web technologies like Node, React? Uh, how familiar are you with JavaScript web technologies like Node, React, and so on? Okay. So, Pranav, thank you for watching. I am not so familiar with JavaScript web technologies, to be honest. I have picked some. I know how to program in JavaScript, the programming language, but I have not really done so much development professionally with JavaScript, and I think that even explains why I have mostly Python content. I also have done some React for when I was still at university. I did some React and React Native, and also went ahead and created some few videos with the simple React knowledge that I had. So I can't honestly say that I am so much experienced in developing with JavaScript web technologies, but I feel like JavaScript is the best way to build a web, and a lot of Python technologies that are actually coming out are just being inspired by what other JavaScript frameworks have done. Now, for the backend, I've developed some. I've I've basically worked with Node very little. Like I haven't really built with Node just like I have with Python. So I've done more development with Python compared to what I've done with JavaScript web technologies. Geoffrey or Yugi, congratulations. 9K is no joke. Kudos, Sevo. Thank you so much. I really appreciate. Honestly speaking, the reason as to why I'm here is because a 9K subscriber milestone is not a small number. For me, it's a huge milestone. It's not something that I would have thought of achieving at any point. So I'm going to go back here. I need to create a Pydantic model in case I am to go ahead and maybe send a post request or do anything. So let's try to see this. Define your data model. Okay, so we have a user model. Let me just actually create a user model. What can we have on a user? I have a user. Uh, this is going to be a Pydantic model, and therefore it should inherit from the base model class from Pydantic. So I will go right here and say from Pydantic import base model. Do I have Pydantic installed? So it's telling me that Pydantic could not be installed or resolved. I guess I have to install it within the virtual environment. Which Python 3, which pip. Yeah, so I'll say pip 3 install Pydantic. So Pydantic wasn't installed. Thanks for your response. Welcome, Pranav. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Okay, so once I've installed that Pydantic, I'll go ahead and create the base model. And once I create the base model, now I need to go ahead and define some fields. So a user can have, let's say, a username. Username can be a string, and then their email address can also be a string. Can't have passwords for now, but then let's say we can have variables such as is verified. Now, keep in mind that this is a totally unscripted video, and maybe I'll have to create a video in future with much more detail compared to what I have here. So after creating a Pydantic model, You can also use data classes. So basically you can also create data classes, and they may also be like your schemas. Okay, so after creating your data class, so there's also this lightstar.dto. I'm wondering what that is, but then I think I'll get to understand what that is. I define a controller for your model, so you can also use these class-based controllers. Let's see how they work. So you can import these methods like get, post, put, patch, delete, and then the controller class. And then you can create a user controller class which inherits from controller, give it a path, and then you can perform pretty much everything you want to do. Oh, interesting. So we can actually uh, do everything within a controller. I wonder how that works. Let us try to do it. So first things first, create a class, user controller. So this is going to inherit from the controller, but then you have to import this because we don't have it. I'll pass this for now, and then I'll head over here from actually it comes actually from where we get all these. So import patch or put and then delete, then we can have our controller. So how do we even run this if we're using controllers? Let's see. So when you use a controller, we need to define route handlers instead of routes. So I guess this takes in route handlers. Okay, route handlers can take in also classes. So I have to remove this, and then I provide our user controller class. And once I provided the user controller class, I can simply go ahead and define our handlers. So here we can have get. So if we define our path here, just like we saw, we can define our path, and this path can be the slash users path. So when we have this users path, it means that we can simply say at get, and then Lightstar will automatically get the method, map onto a handler, and automatically pick up the path for that. I've not got it wrong, because that's what they are doing in this example. They define a handler, they don't define the path inside here. As long as they provided it inside the class as an attribute, it can be accessed by the route handler. And then maybe for the ones that are involving the use of an ID, that's where they can basically go ahead and make use of that specific ID in the parameters. So what I can do is to come right here and say async def, let's say get users. So this is going to take in self, and then yeah, I think it's going to take in self, then return a list of users. So we can just simply return list, and this list is going to be of user objects. So just like we've defined here, shall return our users, and then we let's just pass this for now. So we're going to do is the same thing for post, create user, and then this is going to return a user, but then I think we need to have the user data. I don't know if it kind of allows for us to do that, but then I see like they require data. I think it's not something that we get to name with freedom. I think it's something that's required. So if we say data, that's the data that's going to be required, not any other name. So let's actually just call it data, just like they have said. And then after doing that, get users, create user. So at get list users, and then we can patch or partially update, and then we can put, which is a full update, and then we can get So let's try to get, so I try to say at get. So let me just actually say, oh, actually provided username. So let me provide username, the type of the username, and then we can return the user with that specific username. So it will return a user object. Okay, so trying to partially update, it's going to be the same thing, but the data is going to be user, and then we shall return user. And then so I'm using this tool called Tab9, if you guys have heard of it, to help me automatically complete these at patch. So I'll have to go back here at patch and then say at delete. At patch we'll still have the same thing. I'm using the username, but I think I should be using the ID, so I may name this the UID, and this is going to be of type UUID. So I have to import and say from UUID import the UUID type, and then I say that our UUIDs are going to be UUIDs. Once that is done, then instead of using our usernames, we can simply go ahead and provide our UUIDs or our user UIDs. So to do that, I can come right here, and then instead of having the usernames, we can just rename this to UIDs. And yeah, instead of string, then we can also provide these as UUIDs in the parameters. So I think controllers are nice because then you can have CRUD really fast. So this, instead of being a string, will be a UUID, and then we shall have the same thing right here being a UUID. So at patch, still is going to be so similar to what we have here. So we can provide the controller, and the controller is going to be here. Then I'm going to go ahead and provide the same thing here, which is going to be our UUID. Okay. Okay, then let's also work on the one for deleting. I'm going to copy, paste, and then I provide the method as delete. So here it's going to be update user. So we can actually call this full update or fully update user, and then we can call the other one delete. And then this is going to be partially. And then this is going to be delete user. So I'm going to begin by, first of all, deleting, changing the method to delete. We can have the same path, and then inside here we have delete user, and then this is not going to return anything, so can return none. I don't know how they return the status codes and stuff like that, but then I think it would be interesting to understand. All right, so what VS Code theme are you using? The transparent pop-ups look cool. Okay, so the theme I'm using was recommended to me by a friend. It's called Limey. Let me try to show it to you guys. So the theme is called Limey green, limey dark theme, limey green, limey dark theme, limey darker, limey darkest. It also has that pinkish theme. I don't like that one. I kind of like this dark theme because it looks so much like the default theme VS Code comes with, which is the dark VS Code. I love this theme. It's actually what I use if I don't have any theme that I've installed. So that was a question. I also love the GraphBox theme. It's good, and I love using the GraphBox dark hard. Sometimes GraphBox dark, dark soft. Yeah, GraphBox, GitHub, Limey. Yeah, those are the themes I use. But now I'm using Limey. Another question. Hi, huge congrats for 9K. Your content helped me a lot in my first internship. Wow, thanks for watching. I am really glad my content helped you. That's the main reason as to why I'm still making these videos. I would have given up at the point where I was at 500 subscribers, but then you guys subscribed and you left these comments, and I feel like doing it again and again and again, and that's why we are here today. Thank you so much. All right, so let's go ahead and code. So we've been able to pretty much write these endpoints. Now let's try to dig deeper and understand what this framework is about. So when instantiating your app, import your controller into your application's entry point and pass it into Lightstar, just like we have done. Define a list of route handlers and then pass the controller. Then run your application, just like we've done. So UVCon main my app main, then you point to the Lightstar instance, just like we've done. Reload if you want our server to reload. So what's the philosophy behind this framework? So what we've seen is Lightstar is a community-driven project. This means not a single author, but rather a core team of maintainers leading the project. It draws its inspiration from Nest.js, a contemporary TypeScript framework which places opinions and patterns at its core. Oh, so basically, this is this the way that Nest.js works? Maybe Ryan can answer that if he's worked with Nest.js. I also have Pranav. Pranav asked me the question if I'm familiar with web technologies. I don't know if you guys can tell me if this works the same way as Nest.js. So that's what I'm hearing from here, that it draws the inspiration from Nest. I'll maybe check it out and try to build some of the stuff that I usually build with Fast API. And yeah, I think I'll give it a look one time and try to see how it enables us to develop. I want to see the way it helps us to create endpoints. I don't know if it's similar to what we are doing right here. So you define a controller, you import, oh, it's actually similar. You import the method, you import the controller class, and then you create a controller, you provide the path, then you define, I think it's the same. I think it's the same way of working, though this syntax kind of looks weird compared to what we are doing. You define a class and then you define methods. Those methods are going to be decorated with a path, and that path will be what you want to do within that specific route. Okay, so that's interesting. So another thing we are being told is while still allowing for function-based endpoints, it seeks to build on Python powerful versatile OOP by replacing placing class-based controllers at its core. It's not a micro framework, so we cannot compare it to FastAPI or Django. It includes a lot of functionalities out of the box needed for a typical modern web application, such as ORM integration, client and server-side sessions, caching, open telemetry integration, and many more. It's not aiming to be the next Django. For example, it will never feature its own ORM. So basically, it works with other ORMs, but its scope is not micro either. Okay. Feature comparison. Open API documentation. We've already looked at how it helps us to generate these documentations based on the Open API specification. Now, I don't know where the path for the Open API specification is located, so let us try to see where it's located. Oh, it's actually not shown, but I think there's a path you have to go to see the Open API specification, and they don't show it here. That's weird. Let's try to move on and see. So it's not a micro framework. So it has Open API specification, data validation, dependency injection, class-based routing, ORM integration. We can use SQL, Alchemy, Tortoise, Piccolo, and so on. Then I think we can also use the SQL models of the world and so on. Templating, we can use Ginger or Marco. Okay. Then course, message pack. I think these are things we have. I'm thinking at this point that I can at least sit down and try to create a playlist for this because there's quite a lot to understand. So these are some of the example application. Then the next section is going to be the usage. So if you're wondering, this is basically how I get to learn and make videos. I get to a topic that may interest me, or sometimes I get to actually work on a project that has some tool, and then I get to its documentation, read through the documentation, and then try to create a video just like I'm doing right now. So I usually create small to medium size applications for my videos. I will tell you the honest truth, and this is something that is subjective. I don't think there is any YouTuber out there who will teach you how to develop for the real world. And I speak this not because I know a lot or I can give my opinion on anything, but I think as YouTubers, we are held to the standard that we can show people what is being done in the real world. And that is wrong because a lot of us software engineers get to solve problems daily that other software engineers may not solve. And then we may get to scenarios where we may want to apply what is in a tutorial and we can't. But if you can get what you can learn from a tutorial and apply it to what you have, then that's no problem. Except that a lot of people expect to get real world knowledge from YouTube videos. I personally can't claim that what I teach is what is being used in the real world. I keep my tutorials so simple, so precise. Sometimes, okay, I go into these deep dives, but then I cannot guarantee you that my videos can make you prepared for what the real world offers in software engineering because there's a lot of technologies, there are a lot of tools out there, and a lot of stuff to learn. So Jim Ryan has said that you're not familiar with Nest, only JS framework I used is Express. Yeah, actually also used Express at a certain time. Wow, we are 91 minutes in and you guys are still on. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate like most of the live streams I've done have been alone and few people, very few number of people can be in the live streams, and to me that is something I can say thanks for. All right, so usage, applications, routing, requests, all that stuff. I guess we'll have to look into some of those and then we shall close the live stream. Okay, so application. So we start with application objects. At the root of every Lightstar application is an instance of Lightstar class. Typically, the code will be placed in the main.py, blah, 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 or similar project roots directory. These entry points are used during CLI auto discovery. So basically, if we name a file main.py, app.py, aski.py, I think Lightstar will be able to recognize it and automatically run our app. Then creating an app is straightforward. We just need to provide a list of controllers, routers, or route handlers, just like we've been doing. Then we can basically test the endpoint we've created, just like we are seeing right here. Okay, so the app instance is the root level of the app. It has the base path of that. All root level controllers, routers, route handlers should be registered on it. To learn more about registering routes, check this chapter in the documentation, routing, registering routes. Okay, so if we go to routes, we can see that we can name a route and then can provide a route. And then all you have to do is provide the route handlers. But then there are different ways because then you can have optional parameters, query parameters, and so on. So here they are telling us that we can have routes and then sub routes. So if we basically decorate a route handler with some path, then we can also decorate that handler, or we can create sub paths inside that route handler, and then we can go ahead and register that path handler, which is actually interesting. Let me try to do it here. So I guess I have to go ahead and try to create that, but then I guess I have to have request.app. So we have to inject this inside here. Okay. So if we try to come and say async def, and then this is going to be some, let's say root, let me just call it the root admin path. And then this has to take in some sort of request object, and then inside that request object is where we shall create a sub path. So let me just call this at get, and then we shall say that this is where all the admin endpoints are going to reside, and inside here is where we can define a sub path. So I can still say at get, and then here maybe I can get at admin slash what can we say, users, and then you can define get admin users, and then blah blah blah. Then what we need to do is to go ahead and actually provide a request object, and that's going to be of the type request. So I need to come right here. I made a mistake by saying patch, so I'll just come right here and say I'm also going to import request, and that will be the request object. What have I done? I've accidentally told this AI to refactor my code or to change my code, and it's doing exactly that. So if I say request, then we can provide the request object in here. And once we provide the request object, then you can access the root by saying request dot, and in this case we can access the app, or we can access the app object inside our request object. So in case we want to access any data about the request, we can basically we can get the request object. I think this is where we can get the client, the port, and the IP address of whoever made that request. Let's try it out. So if I come right here, I can, let me try to say return, then I can say return, and we can say that this is going to return a dictionary. I don't know if that's allowed, but let me try to do it. If I say this is going to be a dictionary returning strings and strings, and then we can basically go ahead and return. So let me first try to, oh, so this is a sub path, but then the root path is what I want. So I can try to return the client's IP address by saying client IP, and then the client IP can be accessed. I don't know if this can be request dot client, yeah, get client then dot host. So that's going to be the host name. So that's going to be the client host. But then I want the client IP. I don't know. I think I can still get that. If I say request.client.host, I think that will return the client's IP. And then we can also get the client port. So if I say request.client.port, so that's going to be request.client.port. I think that will still return the port. So all we need to do is to register this into our route handlers by saying root admin path, and we shall save. So I guess the server is going to reload. So we now have an exception, a return value of a route handler function that should be type annotated. So it's strict. It has to force us into using type hints if we want or we don't want. So I guess I have to fix that. So this is what we should correct. So here we are returning a string, just like you see right here. So I guess this is what I needed to put here. Instead of just returning an empty thing, I needed to return, oh, I'm actually doing it wrongly. So this is the return type for this handler, which is string. And then this right here, which is the root, should have to return the type of dictionaries. Oh, I think that is what I was supposed to do. So my server is running, and if I went back right here, refreshed, so we see our documentation is brought back automatically. Now what I want is to access this admin URL. So the admin URL currently returns only the client IP and the client port. And now we see localhost 8000, and then this is the port that the client is accessed from. So basically you can get the client port and the client host. Okay, this is actually nice. We can get the client IP. So we can also go ahead and register this specific route as a subpath. So then we're going to do that from the documentation, request dot app. So I think that gives us the app instance, then dot register. Then we can pass that subpath in here. So we can come and say register, then we provide the name of the route handler we want to register. So hope that won't shut down our server. If we refresh, we can now see admin users. Ah, that's weird. I wanted to see if that path would be got. So this is the root admin path. But then for some reason, the subpath is not being returned. It seems like I'm doing or making a mistake. Get subpath, blah, blah, blah. App.register subpath handler. Then I'll have to add. So we haven't yet added this. We've added it, root admin path. But then we don't have the. I don't know if I've done something wrong, but something is not right here. So you're supposed to have /admin/users as a path. So request any, let me try to do exactly just like they have done there. Am I the only person who feels like type hints make Python not Python? I feel like I'm coding in another programming language every time I'm using type hints. Type hints are a headache, but then they are good for those who actually need them. Okay, so we have another exception here. Too few arguments for request actual true, expected at least 3. What's the problem? Any. I'm trying to do the same thing I've done here, but I'm getting an error. Oh, so basically the root handler does not have to return a response. Okay, so I guess that's my problem. For me to register subpaths, I have to not return anything. So I'm going to remove the response here, and I'll also change this so that it returns none, so that we can at least know that this is returning none. So if I go up here, refresh, I guess this time it's going to work. So let me try to restart my server. Oh, we still have that error. But then at first it was working. I don't know why it's failing now. I provided the request. I'm not an expert at type hints, and I hope I'll get used to them. I feel like they're a headache to use. Forgive me, there are some Python fanatics out there who may kill me for that. So this is returning an internal server error still. But then we can't even know the internal server error, which is interesting. We can't know the server error, but then I'm trying to use the same example here. So I guess there's something wrong with me, or I'm tired, or something. Some path, route handler, blah, 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 and then return. So let me just copy from the documentation, and then I paste inside my code, because this is a non-scripted, this is not a scripted video, so at least have the permission to do that. Anyway, I think I'm going to answer some of the questions that are remaining, and I'll look into going ahead to create an in-depth tutorial about this. then maybe we can look at some of the important features of this framework rather than looking at the basic ones like routing. I think I can go into things like caching, channels, databases, and all that stuff. Maybe that can be interesting for this live stream. So too few arguments, requests, any. Man, it's hard to use this. It's hard to use these typings that are always a problem. So I guess I have to leave that example alone and then move on to something else. But I promise I'm going to make a playlist on this, just like I did for the first API Beyond CRUD series. By the way, I don't know how you guys found that first API Beyond CRUD series. If I go to that video, I think that video really picked up well compared to most of the videos I've created. If I look at that video right now, that video is having close to 7,000 views in 2 weeks. Honestly speaking, no video has performed that well, and it also led 200 subscribers to my YouTube channel in just one day. I honestly have never seen that happen on any of my videos. My videos take quite a lot of time to get to that. So I'm really happy for how people really received that video. From the late start docs, I don't know why I have got away from the docs. But feel free to ask me any question before I end this live stream. This was something I didn't prepare for, but at least I'm glad I've made it, and at least I'm glad that you guys have joined and have coded with me. So that I'm really grateful. I mean, yeah. So yeah, I guess I'll have to move on to something else. Requests. I think that's the request object we've been looking into. The request body, the body of an HTTP request can be accessed using a special data parameter. So when we have passed, what we have done by passing data is something that is specific to the framework. We don't need to provide, let's say, user data or any other name. It has to be data for any post data that we may send via, for any data that we may send via a post request or any request that needs us to use the request body. A moment, guys. Okay, so I had to walk a little bit away from the keyboard, but I'm back. So this is basically what we did. We created a pydantic. Now you can also create one using data classes, and then basically pass that into your data just like we've done right here. So if we needed to do that, we can just use this specific user schema we've created right here, and then go ahead and say let's say post, and post is going to take in, let's say, /users, and then what we can do, so for now I'm not using the user controller, so I can get rid of it. I can then define handler for that. So let's say it's going to be the one for create user, but then this has to be a function. And then so this is basically going to take in the data. So this data is going to be the user data, and then we can return the newly created user, or we can even return a dictionary or return anything. Let's actually just return the data of the user. So I can basically come right here and say return data, So this will take in the data of the user and then return that data. So if we go back right here and refresh, no operation is defined in spec because you have an empty route handlers list. But if I provide the create user, of course, if I refresh, I will see that this is going to return a list of, it's going to return the request body of the user. So it actually creates a random UUID, which is interesting, a username and an email address. So these things are all valid data. If we execute, it's actually going to return that specific code. Now the beauty is it's actually automatically going ahead and returning for us the status code of 201, which is the one for created. So we can now see that we can easily create a user using that. Okay, so that's how we set request bodies for our data. So validation, customization, API documentation. So with the help of the body, you have fine-grained control over the validation of the request body. You can also customize the Open API documentation. So how do we do that? We import body, and then we can go ahead and simply define the data and then provide a description of the fields. So okay, so we can simply also document our body. So if I come right here and import body, I can come where we create our users, and instead of saying data user, this can be annotated. We can use the annotated type. So the annotated type confused me until I got to understand that it is one that you can use to provide metadata about your type hints. So for example, if we annotated that data, we can now specify the type of that data. For example, here we have that data being that of a user. So we can just come and say this is going to be a user, but then you can go ahead and simply describe the information about the different fields of the user. So for our case, we can use the body function. I don't know if this is a function or it's an object, but then in here, what we can provide is the other different attributes of the user. For example, the UUID. So we can come right here, and then we can say the UID is equal to, so we can basically go ahead and provide the title and description and all that stuff. Actually, this goes ahead and describes the mistake I did was to basically say things like this body, just like you see in the documentation, is used to describe what the endpoint is going to do, and it's specific for the documentation in Swagger UI. So if we did something like the description, so I think we can just say create users, and then our title is going to be create users. I don't know how they use it for documenting the different fields on the users. But then I guess I have an issue here. I don't import the name body from Lightstar. Yeah, that's a mistake I did. So this doesn't come from Lightstar, but I think it comes from, let's see, in the documentation right here. That comes from Lightstar body, Lightstar params. Okay, so that's going to be Lightstar dot params, and in here we are going to import the body. Okay, good. So if everything is working, the server is running, our documentation is also running. So we basically went ahead and set request body, no parameters, no parameters. I don't know if this is the body, then we are supposed to have sorry, I had to go ahead and set this. So I don't want to close this, I just want to keep it open. Oh, this is interesting. Description, create a new user. Title, create user. Description, create a new user. So I guess that is the documentation for our. So I don't know how long are we into the live stream? Have you guys finished all the questions I'm supposed to ask? We are 114 minutes into the live stream. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you so much. I honestly didn't plan on coding in this live stream, but I'm at least glad that you've shown up and you've got to ask me questions. So even if I end this live stream here, still we've been able to at least make this live stream happen. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you so much. It's getting a little bit late and I have to go off stream, but I want to thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much for viewing my videos. I am now having a responsibility of turning up and creating content, and please put me on pressure to do it, because I know we may sometimes get lazy or sometimes get complacent and sometimes uh get to be non-serious, but then life also happens. So sometimes life can happen. I've seen a lot of YouTubers I look up to leave YouTube for good, and they don't create content anymore because they have things that happen in their lives. So if I do not show up, then please understand. You understand the fact that I may have things that are going on in my life, but I promise to deliver more content. I promise to produce more value. I am really glad at least witnessing this channel getting to 1 million views or getting to 9,000 subscribers, which is a very good achievement. So if you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like. This is the first time and the last time I'm going to ever witness myself uh, getting to 1 million views on my YouTube channel, and it's going to also be the last time I'll get to have 9,000 subscribers. Maybe if all of you unsubscribed and resubscribed again, so which is impossible. So thank you so much. I have some questions that I had. The question by Pranav is, do you have a business email? No, I currently don't have a business email, but I have one that I use for YouTube. You can find that in my description. I can show it here. It's the email that I get to respond. I respond to every email that is sent to me. So if I click here, this is the email that I use. It's the one that you can send to a message directly if you want to contact me. Pranav is also saying, ha ha ha, they can be a headache, but they save a lot of time as the project scales. Yes, I've had this, and yeah, people say that type-ins are really good with big projects, and I think that's why large-scale projects are built with languages such as Java, because languages such as Java, of course, they force you into types and things like Angular. A friend of mine told me that he uses Angular, and Angular is used in big projects because of those types and the way it forces you to use types. So Rebel Bait, thank you so much for watching. Glad you've joined. Thank you for all the people who have given me super chats. Thank you, Jim. I'm really thankful. Thank you so much. That was the first ever super chat I've ever got on a live stream. Damaris Scott, thank you so much. I really appreciate. Damaris Scott, you are also member of this YouTube channel. To all my channel members, I want to say thank you so much for the work you're doing. Thank you so much for being concerned about the running of the YouTube channel and using your hard-earned money to help run my YouTube channel. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Thank you for all the people who have turned up right here. Thank you, Damaris Scott. Thank you, Jose Morales. Thank you, Lucifer. Thank you, Andy, Andrew. Thank you, Pramado. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Pranav. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Simba. Thank you, Ibrahim. Thank you, Chetan. Thank you, Asay Marie. Thank you, Vesta. Thank you, Gideon. Thank you to everyone who has joined this video. I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for at least being concerned that this channel got here. I know I'm not entitled to anything in this world. In fact, the fact that I even run a YouTube channel that is watched by 1,000 plus people every day at this point is still a miracle to me. I don't know how in the world that can happen, given me, like, I'm not that kind of person to do such great things, but thank you for at least giving me the reason to get on here and create these YouTube videos. Now, I know I've left this hanging and I'm in debt. So what I have to do is to create a playlist on this and maybe a long in-depth tutorial about this framework. So that is something that I will do later. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a great night. It's night this side. It's getting to midnight, so I have to get off. It's some 50 minutes to midnight, but of course that's late. And given the fact that I've been working, I'm tired and I need to have some rest. But then thank you. Maybe I'll have some live streams where I'll get on, discuss a topic, and then we